Where we govern, we do it better. That's been the central message of the Democratic Alliance since it won the city of Cape Town with a fragile coalition in 2006. That success, of course, led them to the premiership of the Western Cape, and in that province, the party has not looked back. So who better then to make the case for a decaying and crumbling Johannesburg than the figure who was pivotal to that DA success, the former mayor and premier and now leader of the Federal Council, Helen Zille. It could be a bold power play. Party insiders are considering her name as the candidate to lead Igoli in next year's election. She says it's an idea worth considering and joins us now to explain. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. This is big news. This is big news. Listen, have you been formally approached and are you seriously thinking about it?
Yes and yes. I have been formally approached and I am seriously thinking about it. But remember, there's always competition in the DA. We like competition. We don't like correlations. And so about 12 people, as I understand it, have applied. Most people don't know who those applications are except the people managing the candidate selection process. And they're people who've approached other people and they're people who've approached me. That's how it works in the DA.
They should all call Athol Trollip. Why would you do it?
Why would I do it?
Yeah.
Because I have unfinished business in Johannesburg. I was born in Hillbrow. I grew up in Johannesburg. I lived in Hillbrow as a journalist. I love that city. I've still got family in that city. And most importantly of all, South Africa can't succeed if Joburg is broken. Joburg remains the financial capital, the economic capital of South Africa, and we have to make sure that Joburg is fixed. South Africa can be on the road to a success, but we've got to fix it bit by bit, and I've always said that's going to start with local government. That's why we put all our eggs into trying to win somewhere at local level, demonstrating better governance, and building from there, from the bottom up. And I've always said that's the way to transform South Africa, and that is what we're doing.
Look, your political rivals, even they, I think, would grudgingly admit your success in Cape Town and the Western Cape. But they might argue Johannesburg is a different kettle of fish. It's a far more cosmopolitan city than Cape Town, and many voters may find you personally wanting on key issues that matter to them around race, identity, transformation. What's your response to that?
Well, my response to that is Joburg is a completely different kettle of fish, but primarily for the reason that it is much, much, much more broken than Cape Town was in 2006. And, you know, the voters of Joburg have to make a choice. Do they want race or do they want services? Do they want good governance? Do they want investment? Do they want jobs? Do they want a turnaround that will get people out of poverty? The DA focuses on getting people out of poverty, not race. We worry about poverty. We worry about the fact that millions of poor people have no access to the economy. We worry about getting investment so that we can have growth and jobs. We worry about fixing the roads, fixing the water, fixing the electricity, fixing the services, sewage, refuse removal, all of those things, because no companies are going to invest in a place where that stuff doesn't work, and no one's going to get a job unless there is more investment. That is our approach. We worry about poverty. We're not obsessed with race.
Helen, why can't we do all of that? We can walk and chew at the same time. In other words, why not bring someone like Dr. Mpophaladze back, who was clearly a capable leader and who was really undone by the council's politics, and some critics would even suggest she didn't get the kind of support other DA leaders have received in similar circumstances. Why can't we do all of them?
Well, I think Mpho herself would say that we did whatever we could to support her. Mark Moriarty left the provincial legislature to be her chief of staff and did an enormous job there. And I was up in Johannesburg an enormous amount to help and support her, obviously. She was new in this very, very overwhelming situation, and she did very well. I hope she's applied. I don't know who's applied, but I hope she's applied because she's free to apply. Everyone is free to apply. It doesn't work in the DA in the way you suggest. It doesn't work like deploying cadres all over the place. Why don't you deploy this one to that position and that one to this position, or bring this one back or send this one there? It doesn't work like that. We open applications, and anybody who wants to apply is welcome to apply.
Let's talk about the no confidence vote up against the current mayor, Dada Morero. Do you have the numbers to remove him as a DA?
Well, the point is you can play musical chairs, but how's that going to help anybody? I mean, the point is we're focusing on ensuring that we become the biggest party in 2026. That is the objective. Playing musical chairs and disrupting things every 5 minutes and getting the EFF-MK coalition in is just not going to help anything, and it's just going to make Joburg worse and worse and worse.
So for now, you want Morero to stay? Is that what you're saying?
No, we don't want Morero to stay at all. Otherwise, we wouldn't have stood against the ANC in the election. But we're focusing on becoming a party that is bigger than the ANC in 2026. That is what we're focusing on. And you can play silly buggers all you like now in the city council and have musical chairs and have revolving doors and have all of that kind of thing. And then 2 months later, there'll be another motion of no confidence, or 3 months later. And then in another 6 months, there'll be another one.
Yeah.
And all the money will be spent on musical chairs, on petty politicking. What we have to focus on is elections and becoming the biggest party in the election. Morero is sitting there and having war rooms and bomb squads and task teams and all sorts of other things. The thing is, you can only govern if you win an election. And that is what our focus is on now.
What would such a candidacy mean for your role in the DA?
Well, obviously, I couldn't do the chair of the Federal Council and do that. I would have to step down, definitely. And the chair of the Federal Council in our constitution is basically a full-time position. You can do one or two other things, but you really can't do the mayor of Joburg and be the chair of the Federal Council.
Yeah, all right.
That really would be impossible because I sit here in the office, I'm here now on a daily basis, making sure that all the work gets done that a huge machine like the DA needs. And that needs a full-time focus.
You said earlier that Cape Town was in better shape in 2006 than Joburg is today. What would your first priorities be if you were to be the candidate and, of course, if the voters were to say yes?
Well, the first priority has to be to stabilize the finances. Joburg has an infrastructure backlog of 200 billion rand and an annual budget for everything of about 86 billion rand. Now you can see what we're dealing with. Money has been bleeding away from the utilities that should be the priority of a city like Joburg. That is electricity, water, sewerage, roads, all of that stuff has been bled dry through these entities, which could, in theory, be a very great success, but aren't because they are used to basically put corruption and cadre deployment on steroids instead of doing their job. So the first thing you have to do is ring-fence the utilities budget and make sure that that money is spent on fixing things and right-size the administration.
Well, Helen Zille, the chairperson of the Federal Council of the Democratic Alliance, seriously considering a run for Johannesburg mayor. Appreciate your time. Would you vote for her? Do you think that some of the issues she says, like race and identity and transformation, perhaps ought to be secondary to things like service delivery? And given her track record in Cape Town and in the Western Cape more broadly, do you care about race and transformation? Or do you want service delivery, which she says she's got the track record to deliver? I'd love to hear your thoughts.